Hey everybody, welcome to what I guess we can call a bonus episode, though it kind of really isn't, of the Go Get Outside podcast. This is your host, Jason Milligan, and I bet you didn't expect to see this pop up in your feed because we haven't released an episode in 3 years. That's right, 3 years. And I'm sure some of you are wondering why, and I do know some of you are wondering why because occasionally I'll get an email asking what happened to the show. So this is the special State of Go episode where I'm going to tell you what has happened with this show, what may happen with this show, and what's been going on with me. So it has been nearly 3 years. Last episode came out in July of 2020, and it is now June of 2023, post-COVID, I guess. So what's been going on? Well, a number of things have happened to change my life. One thing, Erica and I got married 2 years ago. We were initially supposed to get married around the time this show stopped, but, COVID interfered. We had to cancel the wedding. A year later, we just decided to get married in the living room of the house we rent. A year later, we decided we may as well take a honeymoon because we hadn't been able to schedule that either. And last summer, we traveled across Europe for 5 weeks, and that was pretty amazing. And the other big thing that has happened, if you're very astute, you may have noticed that this doesn't say Butcherbird Studios under Apple Podcast or wherever you pick this up anymore. It now says my name. And that is because last year I left Butcherbird Studios. It was an amicable split. We still get along. I still periodically work with them. But essentially, when you start a company, it grows in particular ways, and it doesn't always grow in the ways you intend. And sometimes you're happy to keep following that path, and sometimes you know that path is not right for you. And this was one of those instances. So last year, I left Butcherbird, and everything that I created, which includes this show, remained with me. So I still have the rights to this, so I can still create these shows if I want. And that is what we're here to talk about today. So why did the show end? Why hasn't there been an episode in 3 years? Well, there are a number of reasons why. First, I'll clear up what is probably the biggest misconception about this show. A lot of people seem to think that this was my job. And it never was my job. This was a side project that I funded almost entirely by myself, that I worked on mostly by myself. There was a run where Griffin Davis, who was one of our employees at Butcherbird, was helping edit a bunch of episodes, and that was super helpful. And there are things that other members of Butcherbird did to kind of help me out from time to time, but for the most part, I was the one responsible for making sure this show happened and for funding this show. You may remember there being a few sponsors that popped up from time to time. Those were almost an experiment. They brought in very little money and never even close to the amount that it cost to maintain the show or to offset the cost of the time that was being put into the show. So one of the things I would always do is try to pre-record as many episodes as I could so that I was always 5 or 6 episodes ahead, and that way I could make sure I stayed on schedule. And that worked really well in the beginning, and as time progressed, despite always trying to do that, it was getting harder and harder to deliver episodes on time. And then the other thing is COVID came along and it made it a little harder to record episodes, and it gave me an excuse to step away. There were other personal projects I would like to work on as well that I wasn't able to because I was devoting so much of my extra time to this. So where does that leave us now? So I am considering relaunching this show probably in the fall of this year being 2023, in case someone's listening to this in the far, far future. But if I do relaunch it, then it has to start generating income, which means I'll have to start adding ads to the show. And in the past, the few times that I did have ads or sponsors, I always wanted to make sure that they were right for the audience and that they fit this show. And I'm still hoping to do that as much as possible, but it might be harder to turn down certain ads if it's the only way the show can stay alive. And the other thing that'll have to happen for this show to come back is I'm going to have to get listenership up. This show always got pretty good download numbers for a niche podcast that was independent and didn't feature a celebrity and isn't on one of the major platforms, but never enough to warrant the kind of advertiser dollars that could pay for it to continue. So to bring back this show, I've got to boost listenership, and then I have to sell ads. And so that's where you guys come in. So here is my request for anyone listening right now and still listening and not bored to death. If you would like to see this show return, please do me this favor. Go to the website, gogetoutside.com, and click through to this episode. It should, at this point, be the top thing on the page. Otherwise, go to the podcast section and look for the State of Go episode. There will be a form there with a few questions. If you will just fill out that form, or if you don't feel like going to the website to do that, you could send us an email. So the email address has changed. It is now jason@gogetoutside.com. So please send an email there with your thoughts or answers to the following questions. And if you don't want to do that, you can call 818-925-0106, and you can leave a short message there with your thoughts about the following. The first question is, how do you feel about ads? Would you still listen to this show if it had ads in it? How much would be too much advertising? My current thought is to have ads before and after the show, but it may be necessary to also have some during the show, in which case I would try to place them right before the interview starts. So let me know if ads make or break the show for you guys, or if you're so used to it from other podcasts that you don't care. Question number 2. Different episodes of this show kind of fall in different formats. Usually it's an interview show, but sometimes I have roundtable episodes. Sometimes there would be story-based episodes. What most interests you? Do you like all of those different things? Would you rather this just be an interview show? Would you rather it just be a story-based show? Do you find the roundtables to be the most interesting thing? Or have you always wished that this show would do something else than what it has done? Have you always thought of like, oh, this format would really work for the show and I'd be a lot more interested in it if it followed that format? So let me know what you think about the formats. Question number 3, what is the frequency that you would like to see? Where this show landed was at 2 a month, and that worked pretty well for me. So every 2 weeks there'd be a new episode. I'm thinking that's probably still going to be the case. Does that work for you guys? Do you think that's too much, too little? Let me know. I'm also playing around with a few ideas for shorter bonus episodes that maybe would come out every other month or so in between episodes. Is that something you'd like to see as well? Question number 4. I mentioned that I'm going to have to boost the audience on this if I'm going to bring the show back. Are you willing to help me do that by sharing episodes or sharing Instagram posts or Facebook posts or just telling your friends about it? Because if I can't get the listener numbers up, I can't get the advertising dollars, and then I don't know that I can do more than another season of the show. Question number 5. Where do you listen to this show? Do you listen to it through Apple Podcasts? Do you use Stitcher? Do you use Spotify, iHeartRadio app, through the website? Something totally different? Yeah, what platform do you use to listen to this show? That'll help me figure out where to kind of focus my energies. And then number 6, and this is just kind of the bonus question. Are you interested in additional supplementary content outside of this audio podcast? Like, would you be interested in a YouTube channel that features various videos? I mean, Go Get Outside began as a short video series, and the hope would be to bring back more videos of that type, or just other type of videos highlighting aspects of the outdoor community. Or there could be something else. There could be some sort of interactive element. One of the bonus episode ideas that I'm batting around right now would involve a little bit of an interactive element where people could get in touch with the show and then actually appear on the show. Are you interested in that kind of content, or do you just want the audio podcast that you download in one location and you don't care about these show notes and the website and all of that other stuff? Let me know. So that's pretty much it. Hopefully you stuck around through all this. Hopefully you care to see the show come back. If you don't, then you don't need to do anything. But if you do, please go to gogetoutside.com, click through this episode and fill out that form, or email me, jason@gogetoutside.com, or call me, 818-925-0106, and leave us that short message. If I remember correctly, it has to be less than a minute if you do that. Or you can keep calling back every few minutes and just leave me 30 recordings of your 30-minute idea. And just another little fun thing, if you do go to the website and click through the form, on that page, I'll also feature some of the pictures from the honeymoon Erica and I went on, and I'll include my little compilation video of fun adventures from 2022. This is probably way longer than it needed to be, so I think it's probably time for me to sign off. Hopefully you'll be hearing from me in a few months with a new season of the show. Hopefully I'll be hearing from a bunch of you to let me know that you do want more episodes of this show. Hope everyone's doing well, and thanks for downloading this thing and listening in. And hopefully, see you next time.
And my wife was sure I was dead. I came up with just blood everywhere.
I was lowered into the water, was greeted by a floating body.
Our apartment didn't seem safe. It wasn't clear if the building was going to fall down.
And I said to myself, if it's broken, Nung, you got to go home. Like, you don't have a car, you don't have a hotel room. What are you going to do for another 6 weeks?
What they're mostly concerned about is if you crash, that your bike is not going to turn into a fireball.
Nature always wins, and it is a great unifier.
So it gave me a lot of courage being out in nature, and being afraid of it was not the answer.
But you're a girl and you shouldn't be doing these things. It was always very confusing to me because I didn't understand that. I didn't understand that mentality.
As a human, you have power. You just have to access that power.
If you want something, you got to put the time in to get it.
You should be working so that you can live your life, and that's what I try to do.
Woo!
Hey everybody, welcome to the Go Get Outside podcast. This is your host, Jason Milligan. So what is this show? What is the Go Get Outside podcast? Conversations with people who get outdoors. These don't tend to be elite athletes or people that you'd see on television, but people like us who have everyday lives, jobs, families, responsibilities, but also find time to get outdoors.
So I got two bears between me and the opening. Her boot slips and she bumps the nose of the bear, and ears just raise up, just slowly lift up to an alert status. You can hear me on the footage actually say, I think she's waking up. I think she's waking up.
So you're recommending survival of the fittest based on nunchuck proficiency?
Yeah, I think we're onto something. Yeah, absolutely.
We started on traveling and tourism. But
and now you're talking about 9/11.
Okay, we're going to back off of that. Sorry. Because somebody's like, oh, this podcast sucks, and just turned it off.
There's hail, rain, just like this kind of like wet snow rain that's like blowing so hard. I can't sleep, and I'm terrified that my tent is going to collapse because it's literally like on my face.
Everything was moving, like not just side to side, but up and down. Like it was like being on a subway car. Bikes blew over, and the plaster started coming off the wall, and the windows blew open, and my door blew open, and it was just super loud and really hot. The building got really warm. Like all the inside was heating up from the vibration, like the rebar, and then it stopped.
The little chipmunks that are running around, they're so adorable and cute. We call them mini bears because they literally can do the damage of a bear if given the opportunity, even though they're tiny.
Started diving and bought a boat, burst my eardrum, and I went to the emergency room, and the guy said, well, for the next 6-8 weeks, you're not going to be in the water. You got to have another sport. I went out that day and bought a motorcycle. I had 6 miles on the bike, and a guy hit his head on and crushed my leg. I go back to the emergency room, the same emergency room doctor the next night. He says, you again. I said, you told me to get a different sport.
So swooping is when you basically wait until someone's finished their plate.
Oh, I do know what this is.
Grab the plate before the cleaner takes it, and you finish it. And you know what? My friend found a whole pizza.
Went to the fabric store, got some leopard print fur, fake fur, sewed it into the shape of a tail, and then went up to my camera. So I got like this blurry shot of rosette printed fur. Our first thought was not, oh, this is a prank. Our first thought was, we got an ocelot, and we're going to be famous.
And this is after hundreds of time calling. And then you get a faint, I'm here. First, you're not quite sure.
Right, you think maybe you heard something.
Yeah, and you call out the name again, and then the voice gets stronger. And I tell you, there's nothing quite like that feeling of finding someone when they're lost. You can hear the desperation, in their voice, and you know that, okay, you just did a good thing.